Anyong! Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. So again, this is your instructor, Noel A. Bergonya. And for today, we will be discussing accounting for merchandising business. But this is only the part one, okay, which we are going to introduce again merchandising business, as well as the entries related to the sale and also purchase of goods by a merchandising business. So I hope that you are okay and safe right now. So sit back, relax, take down notes, and if you do have any questions, just key in your questions to our respective chat boxes. Okay, so let's start our discussion. So first, let us again define what merchandising business is. So when we talk about merchandising business, it is a business that buys and sells the products. Okay, so bumibili sila ng process na products, okay? Lalagyan nila ng profit or konting tubo and then they're going to sell it. So examples of which are yung mga sari-sari store natin, drug stores, mga hardware, okay, mga let's say department store, okay? So they are buying finished product already and then for them to sell it. Okay? So those are merchandising businesses. Okay, so in our merchandising business, we have this operating cycle. So before we proceed with the operating cycle, ano muna ba yung operating cycle? So operating cycle refers to the number of days that a business or a company takes in converting its inventories to cash. So from the time na meron tayong cash, and then from the time that we purchase merchandise until it becomes cash again, so that's our operating cycle for merchandising business. Previously in our service business, 'di ba? We have cash and then we use it for our services to be performed and then it will turn now into cash again. So right now, let's identify paano po ba yung operating cycle of a merchandising business. If you have sales for cash, so meaning nagbebenta ka and then binabayaran agad ni customer yung particular amount ng binili niya. Okay, so our operating cycle will start from, of course, the cash, no? And then it will be used to purchase the inventory. So inventory is the terminology used for the products that we have bought and yun yung ibibenta natin sa merchandising natin na business. Then we will sell it for cash. So it becomes now cash. Okay, so that's the operating cycle. Okay, the process of having a cash sales. On the other hand, if we have sales on account, so meaning pinapautang muna natin yung ating merchandise, so of course it will still start first on our cash and then we will buy the inventory, okay? And then we will sell that inventory on account or on credit. Yun po yung terminology natin. And it will become accounts receivable. And after some certain dates, that accounts receivable will be collected and again becomes cash, okay, which will be used to purchase and then to sell again and then collection. So it again becomes a cycle. Okay, so these are our operating cycle for merchandising business. Okay, so later on, we will be discussing as well paano kapag nagbenta tayo ng through cash and also we have sold it on account. Okay, so as you all know, okay, we have already presented the service business na income statement. But let's try to differentiate the service business and the merchandising business income statement. Why is there a need for us to compare? Because most of the differences in terms of the accounting treatment for service and merchandising falls on the item presented in the income statement. Okay? So, for the service business, we have discussed previously na ang typical laman niya ay yung income, okay, yung service revenues natin. And then, we have as well expenses. So, we deduct immediately all of the expenses, yung mga salaries expense, utilities expense, we have also some sort of mga gasoline expenses, okay, ano pa, wages, mga interest expenses and the likes, okay? So, those were the expenses that we deduct to arrive at our net income in the service business. So as you can see, no, it's just a simple single step na income statement wherein we have income less expenses, then we have the net income. But for merchandising businesses, no, okay, so our merchandising business, sabi natin kanina, is buying goods and then we are going to sell them. So once we sold that, no, it will be part of what we so-called net sales. Later, we will be discussing one by one these items na first time nyo palang narinig, or maybe you have already forgotten kung ano po siya. Okay, so net sales, okay, will be the starting point for the merchandising business. And then, wala po ito sa ating service business because in merchandising, we have to sell a product. And we have an expense called cost of goods sold. Okay? So that cost of goods sold, after deducting it from the net sales, will become the gross profit or the gross income of the company. Okay? So eventually, after that, if you have other income such as mga interest income, rent income, okay, so that will be added, okay, and then we have the expenses again, no, which is typical for both service and merchandising. Of course, these expenses are other than the cost of goods sold, since later when we discuss cost of goods sold, it will be considered as the major expense of a merchandising business. Pero naka-separate po siya, nasa bandang taas po siya to arrive at our net income. So as you can see, no, we have income, pero we have net sales and other income for the sake of merchandising. Actually, other income, wala naman problema dyan. Later, what we will be focusing on will be the net sales. And then yung expenses naman natin for service, di ba? We have cost of goods sold and expenses in merchandising. So, eventually, yung pinaka-main focus natin later would fall under the cost of goods sold computation, what comprises those. Okay, so yan yung pagkakaiba ng service and merchandising income statement that again give rise to what we so-called differences in terms of recording our transactions. Okay, so nakakasunod pa po ba tayong lahat? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with the net sales. Okay, so yung net sales natin kanina, that's the starting point of our income statement for merchandising business. And as you have seen here in the screen, no, we have the various items under the computation of net sales. Okay, so we will start in the gross sales, less any sales returns and allowances, less any sales discounts, and that would be equal to our net sales. So let's define first these components, okay? The first of which is yung gross sales natin, or simply sales or sales revenues and other materials, no? Which is the revenue, okay, representing the merchandising business. Okay, so dati sa ating service business, it is known as service revenue or service income. But for merchandising business, we use the term sales or sales revenue or sales income as the account for our revenue in merchandising. Okay? So, of course, since this is revenue account, the normal balance of it is what? Ano normal balance ng revenue account, guys? Okay, that would be credit. Okay? The next account would be sales returns and allowances. Eventually, it is a contra revenue account. Okay? Used when customers return a merchandise. Okay, so una muna, contra revenue account. So pag sinabi natin contra revenue account, it does not have the same normal balance just like the revenue account. So ang kinokontra nitong sales returns and allowances, of course, would be the sales account or the sales revenue account. Now, what would be the normal balance kung contra revenue account siya? Of course, the normal balance of sales returns and allowances would be debit. Okay? So, this is used when the customers, di ba? Pag bumili yung customer and then sometimes it is defective, okay, then they will return it. And in terms of our accounting, we have sales returns and allowances. Okay? Which, itong sales returns and allowances na to, wala po yan sa service, di ba? Kasi, gugupitan ka, tapos ibabalik yung buhok mo, magre-return siya, di ba? O kaya naman, ni-repair yung damit mo, and then, let's say, uulitin ulit, oo, uulitin ulit. Pero there was no such thing as returns in terms of services. Okay? So, that's applicable for merchandising. Another account would be sales discount, which is another contra revenue account ulit, no? Kinokontra niya yung sales. Of course, the normal balance would be debit, okay? Used when the buyer avails of a cash discount from the seller due to early payment of account. So, on our part as the seller, this would be recorded mamaya, no? Because the customer have paid his or her account, okay, ahead of the due date na binigay natin. Okay? So, meron po tayong pag-uusapan mamaya na sources bakit po tayo nagkakaroon ng sales discount. Okay? So, take note of that. So, eventually, these are the elements of the computation for our net sales. Okay, so mamaya, we will be discussing one by one again yung mga items na yan with the corresponding journal entries already. Okay? So, let's start with our gross sales or yung sources ng ating sales or sales revenue. So, it is actually consisting the total sales. So, lahat ng benta natin, either for cash, kanina, di ba, in our operating cycle, we could sold it for cash or on account or on credit during the period. So, again, your gross sales is equal to our what? Cash sales. Okay? Plus any credit sales or sales on account. Okay? So, when we are going to talk about our sale, yung ibibenta po natin, no? The certain amount that we are going to record should be the invoice price or yung gross invoice price natin. So, saan po ba nanggagaling yung gross invoice price? Okay, we have the list price, sabi dito, less any trade discounts. So, yun po yung computation ng ating invoice price. Sir, ano po ulit yung list price? So, when we talk about list price, okay, that is the stated value of the merchandise. So, kung magkano yung merchandise in the tag price or the catalog natin, then that would be our list price. Okay, di ba? Halimbawa, pumunta ka sa grocery store, nakalagay doon sa stante, di ba? 100 peso for, let's say, a can of good. Okay, so yun po yung kanyang list price. Okay, the catalog price or the tag price. And when we talk about trade discounts naman, okay, trade discounts are reduction granted by the supplier or the seller of goods or services, okay, in the list price or catalog price of the goods being supplied. So, bakit po tayo nagbibigay ng reduction or bakit tayo nagbibigay ng trade discount? It's because number one, okay, some sort of business considerations, no? Business considerations such as baka mamaya trade practices na natin. So let's say for example, suki na natin, di ba? Yung bumibili, then most likely we give them some certain discount, di ba? Para at least matuwa naman yung suki natin. And also if you are going to sell on a large quantity, no, orders, of course, pwede mong bigyan kasi super dami, di ba? Pag pumunta kayo sa Divisoria, for example, then marami kang pinamili, pwede kang tumawad. So on the part of the seller, then he or she could give this trade discounts as well as some sort of market competition and other reasons, no, that the company may give trade discounts. And technically, our trade discount is not accounted for separately. So paano po accounted for separately? On the initial pa lang, no, na sales natin, tatanggalin nyo na po yung trade discount. As you can see here in our formula, no, you have the list price or the catalog price, i-deduct mo na agad yung trade discount, then ang matitira po is yung invoice price. So yung invoice price na yon, literal, na yung amount na yon ang ilalagay sa invoice or resibo na ibibigay natin kay customer. Why again? Because we are not going to account for separately for any trade discount. Okay? Are we clear on that? Okay. So, if ever, no, sometimes the seller could give series of trade discounts, no? Mabait siya. Suki ka niya, marami kang pinamili, crush ka niya. Joke lang, okay? So, he could give series of trade discounts and ang tawag po natin doon ay chain discounts. Okay? So, chain discounts will be just like the same treatment with trade discount kasi series of trade discounts lang yan. Pero medyo mas madami lang in terms of computation. Kaya I'm giving you this formula, okay, which is yung list price natin, okay, you deduct you multiplied it with 100% minus the trade discount kasi the possibility there is bibigyan kayo ng, let's say for example, okay, bibigyan kita ng 2% discount kasi suki kita, bibigyan kita ng 3% discount dahil marami kang binili, bibigyan kita ng 5% discount dahil crush kita, okay, pero ayun, at the end of the day, do not add them up. Okay, sa normal accounting natin, do not add them up, yung sinabi ko kaninang 2%, 3%, and 5%. Okay, wag niyo pong i-add, baka gawin yung 10%, no? What you will do is per trade discount given, you will deduct it from the 100%, okay? And that difference should be multiplied on the list price. So as you can see here, 100% minus the first trade discount, no? And then times ulit 100% minus the second trade discount, and then until such time na naubos mo na yung series of trade discounts as multiplier, then that would be your invoice price. Okay? So I hope that it is clear. Applicable din naman tong formula na to kahit iisa lang po yung trade discount, no? Ibig sabihin, list price times 100% minus the discount, trade discount. Okay? So pwede rin po yun. Okay, so that is our invoice price, which is the starting point of everything once we record it in our accounting books. Okay, so to give you an example, okay, regarding our gross sales after considering the trade discount. So let's have adobo trading, which sold merchandise at a list price of 5,000. Take note, list price is 5,000. Since the buyer bought a lot, no? Bumili daw ng marami yung buyer natin, Adobo gave him 2% discount and 3% trade discounts. Okay, so nangyari, binigyan ng series of trade discounts, so dalawa, no? We will not, sabi ko kanina, going to add this two, no? Kung baga, isipin mo, ay 5% dapat siya, hindi, no? It should be separate. Okay, how do we compute muna for the invoice price? Okay, so of course, our list price, okay, is equal our invoice price is equal to what? 5,000, which is our list price, okay? Multiplied mo doon sa 100% minus the first trade discounts natin, okay, which is 2%, so 98% bali yan. Okay, then we multiplied again by 100% minus the second trade discount na 3%. Okay, so that would be 97%. So if you multiplied that, then our invoice price, okay, the invoice price right now is 4,753. Okay, so any question po? Okay, so that's our invoice price, and yan po yung gagamitin natin as starting point natin. Okay, so if ever that you have sold this particular merchandise for cash, so ang entry lang ho natin is debit cash, no? 4,753, and credit sales, which is the account title used for our sales, diba? Or revenue for merchandising business, 4,753. While if you intend it to sell on credit or on account naman, ano yung possible entry? So the possible entry, if it is sold on account, we will be recording it as debit accounts receivable and credit sales. Okay, so again, importante po yung computation natin ng invoice price because that will be the starting point of our recording for our receivable or even sales, no? If we sold it for cash. Okay, so that's regarding our gross sales. So the next element in our net sale computation is the sales returns and allowances. So bakit nga po ba tayo nagkakaroon ulit ng sales returns and allowances? As mentioned to you a while ago, there will be a return by the customer. And bakit po nagbabalik yung customer natin? No? Dahil hindi kanya gusto, hindi, joke lang. Okay, so because damaged or defective yung merchandise. Okay, baka may sira or of inferior quality and not in accordance with their specification. So, pag hindi po sakto doon sa specification na binibenta, then the possibility would be it will be returned by the buyer, 'di ba? Pag gano'n naman, 'di ba, pag sira na, ibalik mo na. Okay? May hugot na naman eh, no? Okay, so in that case, okay, pag binalik po ni customer yung merchandise na binili niya dahil defective o kaya baka inferior yung quality, then the seller usually issued, no, credit memorandum. So credit memorandum is a document, no, given by the seller to whom the customer, okay, to acknowledge that the seller has reduced the amount owed by the customer. So eventually, possibility that you will see the credit memorandum is kapag nagbenta si seller ng merchandise on account, 'di ba? Tapos syempre binalik ni buyer nga yung merchandise na binili dahil defective, then a credit memorandum or credit memoranda, no, will represent the um, amount na tatanggalin natin doon sa utang ni customer. Okay? So eventually, the seller will reduce, sabi nga dyan, yung amount natin ng sales, pero hindi po natin pwedeng ibawas diretso sa sales ha. Kaya nga gagamit tayo ng isang contra account which is sales returns and allowances. So, if the sale was made through cash, okay? Kanina kasi I am referring to a receivable, no, or on account, ibabawas sa utang. Pero kapag the sale was made through cash, no, binayaran na po ni customer, so the seller will refund. So si seller pwede niyang i-refund yung amount na binalik ng customer, okay? So kasi minsan, 'di ba, part lang o kaya naman kabuuan yung ibabalik ni customer, no? Pag isang merchandise ang binili, of course, isang buong merchandise. Pero kapag let's say nag-grocery tapos isang product lang yung may defect, then yun lang ibabalik ni customer, okay? Or the customer will as well ask for replacement na lang, 'di ba? May mga ganung pagkakataon that we ask for replacement. Okay, so we will be recording it through the sales returns and allowances account. So how do we record it? Okay, so let's assume that a customer of Adobo Trading returned defective merchandise amounting to 800 pesos. Okay, so nakadepende sa kung sabi natin kanina, nabenta ba siya through cash or nabenta po ba siya on account, kung paano po yung magiging recording natin. So if ever that it is sold for cash, okay, pag nagbalik si customer at ni-refund mo yon, then we will simply debit sales returns and allowances and credit cash. Okay? Credit cash kasi ni-refund natin. But if the customer has on account, o meaning utang pa lang niya yung merchandise, okay, because we have sold it on account or on credit, then we will be recording it at debit sales returns and allowances and credit accounts receivable 800 pesos. Okay? So any question, guys? Clarification. So that entries represent those entries represents the return of merchandise. Okay, so we're done with the sales returns and allowances, which is again a contra, okay, revenue account natin. The next element under the computation of net sales is sales discount. But before we proceed with sales discount, now let me introduce to you first the concept of cash discount. So, cash discount is a discount. Okay, iba po ito dun sa trade discount kanina ha. Yung trade discount po kanina was given because we have either companies na policy o kaya naman natuwa tayo, there would be large volume of product na binili ni customer, and 'di ba hindi po ina-account for separately yung trade discount. But this cash discount was actually given to encourage early payment of account ng isang customer. Okay? So kasi, 'di ba? Pag pinautang natin yung customer, hindi ibig sabihin nun na si customer magbabayad lang siya basta-basta kung kailan niya gusto, no? We need to encourage the customer, okay, to pay as early as possible so that, 'di ba, yung cash na makukolekta natin can be used again to purchase the merchandise that we will be selling, 'di ba? Yun yung nasa operating cycle kanina. So we encourage early payment of account. So in this case, if the seller is the one na nagbibigay nun, or if it is in the point of view of the seller, then the terminology use of this cash discount is sales discount. Kaya kanina in our introduction, no, we have sales discount, okay, which is part of the seller's perspective. While later, pag diniscuss po natin yung perspective naman being a buyer, then it will be termed as purchase discount. Okay? So, how do we account it for, no, in terms of our computations and entries? Okay, yeah, tama ka na narinig. May entry po ito compared with the trade discount na inaalis na siya sa amount agad-agad for the computation of the invoice price, then it will not be accounted for anymore separately. So, let's talk about sales discount for this part, no? Pero mamaya papag-uusapan din natin yung purchase discount on the part of the buyer. Okay. Another terminology that we will be using for the sake of this cash discount is yung tinatawag po natin na credit terms. And when we talk about credit terms, it refers to an agreement, okay? An agreement between the seller and the buyer that lists the timing, okay? Timings and amount of payment that the buyer will make in the future. So, eventually, this is the agreement between the buyer and the seller, hanggang kailan po yung due date ng bayaran. Kasi 'di ba papautangin natin as a seller yung buyer natin. So, dapat may mapag-usapan tayong kailan yung due date. Hindi pwede na hayaan lang natin, antayin lang natin na magbayad si buyer. Okay? So, let's have some sort of credit terms. And the common example of credit terms are, okay, so you can see this 2/10 and over 30. So ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Okay, yung 2% po, okay, that represents the 2% discount. Okay? And the 2% discount can be availed if, okay, the customer will pay it within 10 days. Kaya siya over 10. Yung 2/10, no? The discount of 2% on the price due if they pay within 10 days. Okay? Up to 10 days po yung ating discount na pwede pong ma-avail ni customer. Okay, pero pag lumampas na yon sa 10th day, so let's say 11th day na po, then hindi naman po kumbaga defaulted yon, no? Pero we are giving them N over 30. Ano ba N over 30? Sabi dito, if not, the buyer will have to pay the full amount on 30 days, no, from the date of sales invoice. So 30 days after, no, nung particular sales natin, then that's the due date of the full amount. Okay? So, eventually nga, makakakuha po ng cash discount si customer or tayo as a seller. On our perspective, we will give cash discount if the customer will pay within 10 days. Okay? And 2% in discount. So, bale, lumalabas, example lang to pero yung numerator, ibig sabihin yan kung ilan yung percentage. So, pwede rin kasi maging 3% yan, 5% yan. So, yun po yung discount rate natin. And then, yung denominator doon would be the due date, no, para doon sa pagbabayad for availing the cash discount. Okay? Sir, bakit naging 10 days lang? Kasi, as mentioned to you a while ago, for cash discount, di ba, we encourage the customer to pay his or her account, no, as early as possible. Okay? So that's one example. Another would be, pwede rin pong magkaroon ng various ranges of discount rate. Okay? So we have 3/10, 2/15, and over 30. So what does it mean? So first, no, if you pay within 10 days, di ba? 10 days, the customer could avail 3% discount. So pag nagbayad siya within 10 days. Pero, kapag lumampas na, let's say, day 11 up to day 15, kasi yun yung second, no? Day 15, then, ang maa-avail na lang po ni customer ay yung 2%. Okay? So, habang papatagal ng papatagal, nawawala na siya ng chance dun sa discount. Okay? So, dito sa example na to, 3/10, so 10 days yung 3%, 2/15. So, 15 yung 2%. And then, after ng 16th day na, di ba? 16th day, wala na pong discount. Pero, pwede po magbayad si customer up to 30 days kasi nakalagay po dito N over 30. Okay? So, any question? Wala. So, paano po ba magbilang nung days? Halimbawa, ngayon ng binenta, okay? Ngayon binenta, this is day 0, no? Day 0 nung binenta. Ang day 1 mo would be tomorrow. Okay? So, yun yung starting ng bilang natin ng number of days. Okay? And then lastly, we have 2 over EOM, no? N over 60. So ano po yung EOM? End of the month, yung ibig sabihin nun. So this 2 over EOM, ibig sabihin, the buyer may avail 2% discount if it will pay by the end of the month. So binibigyan ka at the end of the month, no? So kahit binili yan ng, let's say for example, October, ano ngayon? October, let's say 15, no? October 15, so up to October 31, no, that's the end of the month, you can avail for 2% discount. Pero after the end of the month, then that will be already, no, you are not given the chance to get the 2% discount, but you can pay N over 60, so 60 days po yung due date natin for the full amount of payment. So again, as early as possible, no, would be good so that the customer will avail the discount. At the same time, sa atin naman as being the seller, no, we could be able to have the cash immediately that will be used to purchase our merchandise. So it's more on accounts receivable management po, no, yung pinag-uusapan dito sa credit terms on the part of the seller. Okay? So now let's talk about specifically for sales discount on the perspective of the seller. Okay, so let's have this example. Adobo Trading sold merchandise with an invoice price of 15,000. So invoice price na po with a credit term of 2 over 10 and over 30. By the way, pag nakita nyo pala itong credit term na to, ang ibig sabihin yan parati is on account po ha. On account po agad yan, no? Hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na ay for cash yan kasi may credit terms, no. Automatic, kaya nga po siya credit terms kasi binibigay lang siya for those sales on account. Okay? So first, let's have the entry muna kapag binenta yan, no? So the entry would be debit accounts receivable kasi on account niya 15,000 and we credit sales 15,000. Okay? So kanina, napag-usapan natin na the discount or the cash discount could be available only up to certain extent. So dito sa example ng credit terms, we have 2 over 10 and over 30. So ibig sabihin, 10 days lang po. Within 10 days po yung payment ni customer para makapag-avail ng 2% discount. So let's now have paano kapag na-avail ni customer yung cash discount kasi nakolekta natin within the discount period. So nagbayad si customer from day 1 up to day 10. Okay. So what would be the entry? So we will be debiting cash. So magkano na lang ho yung cash na marireceive natin? 14,700 na lang po. Bakit? Kasi yung 15,000 na utang ni customer, babawasan mo na ng 2% discount, 'di ba? Kaya nga naka-times 98% kasi bawas na po yung cash discount diyan, okay? 14,700. And then, we will account for separately dahil ito po ay cash discount, yung title na sales discount which is a contra revenue account, kaya debit balance po ang normal balance niyan, no? And in the entry, we debit sales discount amounting to 300 pesos. So where did that 300 pesos came from? So we have the 15,000 ulit na invoice price natin times yung discount na ibibigay na 2%. Okay, that's 300. And we credit accounts receivable 15,000. So eventually, once collected, we have a sales discount already. And we receive lower than 15,000 since binigay natin kay customer yung discount na 2%. But what if the customer was not able to meet yung 10 days, okay, or yung 10 days so that he or she could be able to avail the 2% discount. So ano pong mangyari? So if it is collected after the discount period, so the whole amount of 15,000 needs to be collected by the company. Kaya ang entrada natin would be debit cash 15,000 and we credit accounts receivable 15,000. No discount kasi nga it is collected after the discount period. Okay, so that's how we account for using the cash discount, and how do we account for the sales discount in our journal entries. Okay, any questions? Again, if you do have any questions, do not forget to key in your questions in our respective chat boxes. Okay, so just to summarize, no, before we proceed with another topic, just to summarize, we have discussed the gross sales, diba, which is coming from the invoice price. And then we have the sales returns and allowances if customers have returned the merchandise because either it is defective or damaged o kaya naman inferior in quality or does not fit its use. Okay, and we deduct as well sales discount, okay, coming from our credit terms, no, and cash discount that the customer have paid as early as possible within the discount period, and deducting that sales discount, we will get the net sales. Okay, so that's our net sales for the income statement in the merchandising business. Again, if you do have any questions, please key in your questions in our respective chat boxes. For you guys na nasa YouTube lang, then you can comment your questions in our comment box. Okay? So we're done with the net sales, and let's move forward to the next part of our income statement, which is cost of goods sold. Okay? So before I proceed discussing what cost of goods sold is, so eventually yung computation ng cost of goods sold is as follows, no? We have beginning inventory, no? When we talk about again the terminology inventory, that is the account title used for merchandising business para doon sa binili natin na merchandise. In other books or in other materials, it is also known as merchandise inventory. So okay lang po 'yun. So inventory beginning, okay, that is the balance, of course, on the last period, plus net purchases, okay. So when we add net purchases, then that would be cost of goods available for sale, okay. And after we deduct the uh, ending inventory from the cost of goods available for sale, then we will arrive to our cost of goods sold, okay. So, yan po yung formula. If, by the way, mamaya we will be mentioning that this formula is applicable for um, periodic inventory system. Okay? So, kasi more on periodic muna tayo dito po sa presentation na to. Okay. So, let's define what cost of goods sold is. So, actually, cost of goods sold, also known as cost of sales, is the largest expense in a merchandising business. Diba? As mentioned to you a while ago, it is because the products of our merchandising business being sold is represented here in the cost of goods sold. So this cost of goods sold account is representing the costs of the merchandise being sold to customer. And typically, wala po tayong ganito sa service kasi nga we do not sell naman po products that we bought in service business. Okay? So, ayan po yung formula natin, and mamaya po, we will dig deep actually doon sa net purchases kasi yun po yung part ng discussion natin. Yung beginning inventory and ending inventory, we will be discussing that further, no? Saan nanggaling yung mga amounts na yan pagdating po natin ng adjusting entries, no? For merchandising business. Okay? So, are we clear? Okay, so let's have first inventory system. So kanina nabanggit ko po that throughout this discussion, we will be using periodic inventory system. So when we talk about periodic inventory system, okay, so by the way, meron tayong dalawang i-discuss na inventory system. Let me just first discuss the periodic, which, okay, the characteristics of periodic inventory system is that we determine the quantity of inventory on hand. So, nalalaman natin ilan pa po yung natitirang inventory, okay, or merchandise na binibenta natin only periodically as it names imply. Okay, so we know it periodically. So, in that case, paano po natin malalaman na periodically ito yung amount ng natitirang inventory? Because of yung tinatawag natin na physical count. Okay? So nagkakaroon po tayo ng physical count. So bibilangin po natin kung ilan po yung natira, 'di ba? Mas madali kasi magbilang kung ano yung natira kaysa yung nawala na, 'di ba? Joke lang. Okay? So pero yun yung ginagawa sa periodic inventory system. We try to count periodically kung ilan po yung natitira. And then, pag nag-record po tayo later, okay, once na bumili po tayo ng inventory, we will be debiting it using the purchases account. Okay, so ginagamit po natin purchases account. And then, if ever din na meron tayong transportation cost na babayaran, mamaya i-discuss din po natin paano po siya magiging part ng ating entry, no? Then if we pay the transportation cost and we are the one required to pay it or to borne yung ating transportation cost, then it will be recorded using transportation in or freight in account. Okay? And just in case na dahil nasa perspective po tayo being the buyer, 'di ba? Kanina in the sales part, we are on the perspective of being a seller. Ngayon naman dito sa part ng cost of goods sold, we are on the perspective of being the buyer kasi 'di ba? Our merchandising business is on buying and selling. So nagiging buyer tayo on some certain perspective. Okay? So kapag nagkaroon ng returns, we will be using naman, no, tayo yung magbabalik ngayon, then we will be recording it under purchase returns and allowances. And then once na nag-avail tayo, nagbayad tayo being the buyer, no, on time or within the discount period, then we could avail the purchase discount. So yan yung mga account titles if we are going to use periodic inventory system. Okay? But on the other hand, we have perpetual inventory system naman. Okay? So under the perpetual inventory system, no, we do not count it periodically, but we track the changes in the inventory account. So more on pag perpetual, naka-record, no? Meron po tayong record of all purchases, okay, and sales being issued for the goods, okay? So naka-monitor po, hindi po usually ginagamitan ng physical count, okay? Nagfi-physical count pa rin naman po sa perpetual. Pero ginagawa lang po 'yun for the sake of rechecking kung ano yung nasa record. Kasi sa periodic kasi nakarely lang siya dun sa physical count, no? And again, on the second bullet po, lahat po ng purchases at saka benta natin will go directly to the inventory account. Kanina, dumaan pa siya sa purchases account, no? Sa purchase returns, sa purchase discount, sa transportation in for the periodic inventory system. Pero sa perpetual inventory system, isang account title lang po lahat ng yan. It will fall under the inventory or merchandise inventory account. Okay? Also, for perpetual inventory system, we record cost of goods sold at the time of sale. 'Di ba kanina nung nag-entry tayo sa sale part, no, as being the seller, wala naman tayo ibang nakitang entry aside from sales. Pero kapag perpetual po yung ginamit, we will be recording na yung cost of goods sold. Mag-entry po tayo dyan, okay, by debiting cost of goods sold and crediting inventory. Okay? And finally, no, the perpetual inventory system, again, have a continuous record of the balances ng inventory at saka cost of goods sold. Dahil nga po, naka-monitor po tayo, we continuously track the changes. Okay? So throughout the discussion of this presentation for today, we will be talking and using muna periodic inventory system. But for the next video presentation that I will share to you on the next meeting, then we will be discussing na po yung entries ng perpetual inventory system. So again, for this time, simula kaninang sales kasi, no, up to this recording of the merchandise, no, being the buyer, okay, we will be using first periodic, no? And next video presentation, we will be discussing perpetual inventory system. Okay? So, let's start, okay, with the periodic inventory system, no, purchases kanina, but in our computation for cost of goods sold for the purposes of periodic, no, nakalagay po doon we have net purchases. Okay? So ano nga po ba yung net purchases? Okay, in terms of computation, net purchases is computed by having the purchases, okay, less any purchase returns and allowances, less any purchase discounts, add nyo po yung freight in or transportation cost to arrive at our net purchases. So we will be discussing one by one the components of this net purchases. Okay? Okay? So kagaya kanina, let's define first one by one itong mga accounts na to, no? So first would be the purchases account. So a purchases account in the periodic inventory system, okay, is an account used to record all acquisitions. So lahat ng purchases natin, lahat ng binili natin na inventory during the accounting period, okay, yung bibenta natin, lahat po yun papasok sa purchases account natin. Okay? So that's the use of purchases account, to record all of the acquisitions of inventory. Samantalang yung purchase returns and allowances, no, 'di ba, kagaya kanina nabanggit ko in the seller part, that customer could be able to return their product being bought, no? If the customer, as the buyer, no, dito kasi buyer tayo purchases part. So if we, the buyer, return the merchandise, then we will be recording under periodic inventory system, no, the purchase returns and allowances. Then, kapag nakapag-avail naman tayo ng cash discount, kanina inintroduce ko na rin po itong title na to, on the perspective of being a buyer, then we will have purchase discount representing our cash discount. Okay, because we have paid as early as possible within the discount period. And then finally, we have transportation in, o kaya naman po freight in, which is representing the transportation costs. Okay, di ba? May mga delivery charges kasi sometimes when we buy products, okay, which was borne by the buyer. Okay, so mamaya pag-uusapan natin kasi may mga basic premises for recording the transportation in. Okay? So yan yung aabangan natin for the next few slides about this net purchases. So let's start with purchases. Okay? So when we talk about purchases, okay, it is an account used again to record all of our merchandise being purchased in a periodic inventory system. Okay? It is recorded using the invoice price. Kanina, in the seller's perspective, di ba, we have list price minus trade discounts, diba? Which is equal to the invoice price. And that invoice price, what's the starting point sa seller sales recording? Dito rin po sa ating buyer's perspective, once we have a trade discount na na-avail dahil binigyan tayo ni seller, okay, we will not account them for separately, but rather, kung ano lang po yung nakalagay sa invoice or the invoice price, that will be the amount to be recorded. And then, no, these purchases could be recorded as well either by paying through cash immediately. So, pwede tayong purchases for cash. And also, we could be able to purchase as well on account. So, pwede rin nating utangin. No? So, there would be difference in entries mamaya if we pay it through cash immediately or i-on account po natin. Okay? So that's for the purchases. Now, let's talk about an example about the purchases. So let's say we have Menudo Company purchased merchandise with an invoice price of 10,000. Again, for merchandising buyer perspective, no, we record purchases using the invoice price na lang. Okay? So, again, sabi ko rin po kanina, we could purchase it through cash or purchase it on account. So, paano po pag for cash ang purchases natin? How do we record it? So, if it is cash purchases, so we just simply debit purchases and credit cash for 10,000 pesos. Okay? While, if it is on account, we will be debiting purchases, 10,000 pa rin, and we credit accounts payable naman. Okay, so that's how we record our purchases either for cash or on account. Kaya maigi guys na kapag magsasagot na kayo, please read the problems properly so that you could be able to record it correctly, whether is it cash sales or on account. Okay? The next component of our net purchases is the purchase returns and allowances, which is again the reason why we have purchase returns and allowances, because we, the customer or being the buyer, no, could return the merchandise because it's defective or inferior in quality. okay, the buyer will receive the credit memorandum issued by the seller. Di ba kanina, on the seller's perspective, the seller prepared the credit memorandum, then send it to the buyer to inform him or her that the account was already been deducted using the credit memorandum. So ngayon, tayo, once na papadala natin yung product or ibibigay natin yung product na ibabalik natin doon sa seller, okay, we will be receiving that credit memorandum, which represents that we will be deducting already the amount, no, from our account. And also, if yung sale naman was made through cash, of course, tayo being the buyer, we will have a refund. Okay? Pwede nating ipa-refund yung certain amount na yon. Okay? Or we could ask for replacement. Okay? Lalong-lalo na kung kailangan natin. Okay. So let's talk about an example about purchase returns and allowances. So let's say, for example, Menudo Company returned defective merchandise amounting to 700 pesos. Okay? So ang tanong ulit natin dyan pag returns, okay, ano ba yung original na transaction natin? Binili ba natin yan through cash or binili natin on account? So if you bought that particular product for cash, then ang mangyayari, i-refund po sa inyo. So pag ni-refund sa iyo, ang entry mo would be debit cash, 700,000, and you credit purchase returns and allowances, 700,000. So again, we credit the purchase returns and allowances kasi ang normal balance, as mentioned to you a while ago, since this is a contra purchases account. Take note, this is a contra purchases account. Okay, contra account po natin yan. Okay, the normal balance of it is credit. So, bakit credit? Kasi yung purchases na kinokontra niya kanina, ang normal balance ay ano? Debit. Okay? So, we credit the purchase returns and allowances and we receive cash, no, for the refund if it is under the cash purchases. But if the purchases was made through account or on account, then okay, it will just be a deduction. So, our entry would be debit, accounts payable. So, bawas sa utang natin, and credit po, purchase returns and allowances. So, just like what I have mentioned to you a while ago, please check ng maigi yung problem kung ano po ba yung original transactions related to that return. Okay? So, that's regarding purchase returns and allowances. The next element in the income statement computation of the net purchases kanina is yung purchase discounts naman. And na-lay down ko na po kanina yung basis for purchase discount, di ba? Same lang din po siya. If we have credit terms, okay, if you have seen credit terms in your particular problem or in your invoices, then that will trigger that we could avail a purchase discount being the buyer if we are going to pay that account, no, within the discount period. Okay? Kailangan magbayad ka within the discount period para makapag-avail ka ng purchase discount or any discount. Now, we have, for example, Menudo Company purchase merchandise with an invoice price of 15,000 and the credit terms of 2/10 and over 30. As mentioned to you a while ago, no, kapag nakakita kayo ng credit terms, automatic na iisipin natin sa seller, it is sales on account. Kapag dito sa buyer's perspective, we have bought it on account. Okay? So, at the time na binili natin siya, okay, of course, it will be purchased on account or credit. No? Hindi po siya pwedeng sabihin na for cash siya kasi nga it has a credit term. So, we record first to purchases, no? 15,000 and we credit accounts payable 15,000. Okay? Ngayon, magva-vary po yung entry natin after this date of purchase if the customer have paid dito sa problem natin within 10 days. Kasi 'di ba, within 10 days if the customer or if we the buyer pays it, then we will avail the 2% discount. If no, we have availed and paid it within the discount period, ang entry po natin of course would be we debit the accounts payable, yung utang natin na 15,000. Then we will avail the 2% discount. Okay, kaya 15,000 na utang times 2%, we have a credit to sales this should be purchase discount. Okay, we have a purchase discount amounting to magkano? Okay, 300 pesos. And we credit cash amounting to 14,700 kasi bawas po yung purchase discount natin. Okay? So, ganun po yung ating scenario dyan. No? We have um, paid it within the discount period, thus we have availed the purchase discount. But if we do not pay it within the discount period, no, ang typical entry lang natin ay debit accounts payable 15,000 and we credit cash 15,000. Okay? So, they are encouraging us to pay. Sir, ibig sabihin, mas maganda pang mangutang na lang muna tayo tapos bayaran na lang muna natin siya within the discount period para maka-avail ng discount. Actually, most of the companies are doing that, no? Lalo na kapag yung kanilang ka-transaction is tawag dito, selling on credit. Kasi nga they could be able to avail some discounts if they are going to pay within the discount period kahit na may pera na tayong pambayad as the buyer, no? Kasayang din kasi yung diskwento. Okay, if that's the case. Okay? So, again, we have purchase discount at napansin niyo, no, credit po yung kanyang entry. So, this is again having a normal balance of credit naman. Kagaya ng purchase returns and allowances, kinokontra niya yung ating purchases account na ang normal balance naman ng purchases account ay what? Debit. Okay? So, again, if you do have any questions, please key in your questions to our chat box. Okay? So, let's continue. After the purchase discount, no? Ayan na, no? We'll be talking about transportation costs. So, 'di ba, pag tayo bumibili, lalo na kung yung products natin is galing sa other places, we are going to pay for some transportation costs. Okay? So now, let's talk about sino po ba yung magre-record ng transportation costs, okay? At saka sino po yung nagmamay-ari na ng goods na in transit. Okay? So when we talk about transportation costs, no, the usual term na ginagamit for this transportation cost or freight in is yung una, FOB shipping point. So by the way, the terminology na FOB, it means free on board. Okay? Free on board shipping point. Okay, FOB, yun po yung FOB shipping point, no? The first term for transportation cost. Wherein, if makikita ninyo itong FOB shipping point, sabi po doon, the buyer shoulders the shipping cost. So, ang nagbabayad po, ang dapat magbayad ng transportation cost, let's say, pina-LBC mo, no? Ang dapat magbayad ng fee for LBC should be the buyer. Okay? Now, sino po yung nagmamay-ari ng goods, no? Sino po yung nagmamay-ari habang, 'di ba kasi tinatransport pa siya. Let's say for example, from Pangasinan pa yung product. Tapos binili natin, tayo ay nasa Manila. So binili pa natin from Pangasinan. So syempre, during the time na tinatransport yun, sino na po nagmamay-ari? If your transportation term is FOB shipping point, then the ownership of the goods passes to the buyer when the inventory leaves the seller place. So meaning, yung product na binili mo from Pangasinan, no, at tinatransport na po from Pangasinan going to Manila, okay, you are already the owner if it is FOB shipping point. Kasi sabi dito, yung ownership po napupunta na kay buyer at the time na umalis yung product doon sa seller's place. Okay, that is under FOB shipping point, and again, the buyer already owns the goods while in transit. So pag sinabi kong goods in transit, ibig lang sabihin yan, in progress pa, no, yung delivery ng product. So nasa daan pa lang siya, nasa airman siya, or nasa barko pa lang siya, no. Again, if FOB shipping point, the buyer already owns that goods. Okay? So, another terminology for transportation is yung FOB destination naman po, no? FOB or free on board destination. At ano pong meron dito? The seller will bear the cost. So, ang dapat na magbayad ng transportation cost if you have entered FOB destination na shipping term is yung seller. Si seller dapat yung magbayad. And of course, the next question is, sino po yung nagmamay-ari ng goods, no, habang tinatransport? Since this is FOB destination, from the word itself destination, no, the title passes to the buyer upon the receipt. So ibig sabihin, para maging pagmamay-ari yung goods ng buyer, kailangan mo nang dumating nun sa destination. So, ano ibig sabihin kung the goods is already in transit pa lang? Ibig sabihin, hindi pa po nakakarating sa buyer. So, FOB destination states that yung in transit na goods or tinatransport pa lang na goods is still owned by the seller. Kasi nga, hindi pa po nakarating sa destination. Kanina, doon sa FOB shipping point, magiging pagmamay-ari lang yon ni buyer upon shipment or umalis na sa shipping point. Kaya nga shipping point, yun yung clue ninyo, no? Shipping point, umalis na, then buyer. Pag destination, hanggat hindi pa nakakarating sa place ni buyer, then hindi pa pagmamay-ari ni buyer. Okay? So, that's the difference between the two shipping terms. Okay? So, are we clear on that? So, mamaya in our recording, titignan mo, sino ka ba? Si buyer ka ba or si seller ka? Okay? Anong shipping terms? FOB destination or FOB shipping point? Okay? So also take note guys that in some other cases meron pong 'di ba minsan nag-aabono o kaya minsan may nagbabayad. Okay, so let's talk about those terms in terms of transportation. So let's have yung terminology na freight prepaid. Okay? So yung freight prepaid na pong 'yan and freight collect, okay, are terminology as well used for transportation costs. And for freight prepaid, ang ibig sabihin lang po no, pag term na freight prepaid, si seller muna yung nagbayad ng transportation cost before shipping the goods. Kanina guys sa FOB shipping point at saka FOB destination, ang pinunto natin doon, sino yung dapat magbayad. Okay? Ngayon, dito sa freight prepaid, ang nagbayad muna ay si seller. Okay? Before the transportation of goods. Kasi 'di ba merong mga shipping companies na at the time na bibili ka ng product, okay, kailangan or ipapa-deliver mo yung product, kailangan mo nang bayaran agad-agad. Such as LBC, for example, di ba? Bago siya umalis doon sa point ni LBC, dapat mabayaran mo na yon, okay? And then, saka isi-ship. Okay? So, si seller muna yung nagpapaluwal na magbabayad if that is freight prepaid, no? Then, kapag freight collect naman, no, si freight company, okay, yung nagta-transport, ang sinisingil po sa transportation cost ay sino? Si buyer. Okay, just like ano lang, example ko lang ng freight collect. Kagaya nung sa Shopee, 'di ba? For example, si Shopee o kaya si Lazada, 'di ba? Lalo na kapag naka-cash on delivery po tayo, no? Binabayaran yung transportation cost kasama ng product, okay, pag dumating na sa atin as buyer. So that's an example of freight collect. Okay? So, sir, bakit ba natin inintindi itong freight prepaid at saka freight collect na to? Gusto ko lang nabigyan ng emphasis uulitin ko lang na pag freight prepaid, si seller muna yung nagbabayad. Si freight collect, ang nagbabayad po ng transportation, si buyer. Okay. The next question kasi, okay, next slide na po ako ha, is paano kapag nag-combine yung FOB shipping point at saka FOB destination or even the freight prepaid and freight collect in one shipping terms. So paano po kaya yung mangyayari? Okay? So I have summarized here the details about what we have discussed kanina in terms of the shipping terms at the same time yung freight prepaid or freight collect who pays the freight first. Okay? You have seen already the table, no? Okay. So, let's start with the first combination. FOB destination, freight prepaid. Okay. So, sino ang dapat magbayad ng transportation costs kapag FOB destination? 'Di ba si seller? Tama naman kanina in our discussion. Now, freight prepaid. Sino yung nagpaluwal kanina? Si seller. Tama po ba? So, who owns the goods in transit? Dahil ito po ay FOB destination, okay, ang nagmamay-ari pa rin po ng goods habang tinatransport natin is still the seller. Okay? So, at the end of the day, parang walang singilan na magaganap. Bakit? In terms of transportation cost. Kasi si seller naman dapat talaga yung magbayad, pero ang nagbayad din ng shipping cost natin is si seller. So, kumbaga tama lang kasi siya dapat yung talaga magbayad and he owns the goods in transit. Okay? Pero, pag FOB destination ka, okay? 'Di ba? FOB destination, ang kailangan magbayad ng goods or the transportation cost would be the seller. And then freight collect. Sino po yung nagbayad? Ang nagbayad po ay si buyer. 'Di ba? Freight collect ang nagbayad si buyer, pero ang dapat magbayad dahil FOB destination ay si seller. So mangyari diyan, magkakaroon tuloy ng singilan sa dalawa, no? Which affects the entry. So kapag on account 'yon, ibig sabihin si buyer kakaltasin niya na dun sa utang niya kay seller. Okay? So, ganun din, dito sa FOB destination, freight collect, si seller naman ho ay magkakaltas na rin nung sisingilin niya kay buyer kasi kumbaga parang nag-act na inabonohan ni buyer yung transportation costs. But also, no, sa question na who owns the goods in transit, ang sagot pa rin is si seller kasi FOB destination pa rin yun. Hanggat hindi nakakarating kay um, buyer, then pagmamayari pa rin ni seller. Okay? How about FOB shipping point, no? Freight prepaid. FOB shipping point, who should pay the freight? Sino po yung dapat na magbayad ng freight? Of course, the buyer. Okay? Pag freight prepaid, sino po yung nag-aabono? Okay? Si seller. So, nag-abono ulit si seller, no? At saka si buyer. So, ibig sabihin nun, additional naman na utang ni sino? Additional na utang ni buyer. Kasi 'di ba siya yung dapat na magbayad pero ang nagbayad muna ng transportation cost dahil freight prepaid ay si seller. So additional utang dito and then additional na kukolektahin ni seller. But who owns the goods in transit pa rin? Of course, the buyer. Kasi nga FOB shipping point. Okay? And lastly, FOB shipping point, no? Freight collect, sino po yung dapat na magbayad ng freight dahil ito po ay shipping point then the person who should shoulder the freight is the buyer and then dahil freight collect, sino ba yung nag-abono, nagbayad? Si buyer din naman. So, walang magaganap na singilan. Okay? So, okay lang tayo dyan sa FOB shipping point, freight collect, and who owns the goods in transit? Of course, the buyer since it is FOB shipping point. So, I hope na nakuha po ninyo ha yung mga certain aspects po nito. Okay? So let's show an example for entries not related to transportation costs. So let's presume that Menudo Company paid 1,000 for the transportation costs of merchandise purchase on account. So nagbayad siya ng 1,000, siya yung buyer. Okay, let's say for example, it is FOB shipping point, no? FOB shipping point, who needs to pay the freight? Of course, it is the what? Buyer. So tayo as the buyer, Minodo Company, now we will be recording it as freight in or transportation in kasi nga tayo yung dapat magbayad ng freight na yon. And of course, sabi ko naman kanina sa inyo, transportation in or freight in is an account used to record the transportation cost borne by the buyer. Okay? So we debit freight in, credit tayo ng cash. Okay? If it is FOB shipping point. Pero paano kung yung term ay FOB destination? Okay? FOB destination. Okay? Tapos, okay? Then let's say for example, we have FOB destination. Okay? So FOB destination po tayo. Tapos, sino dapat yung magbayad ng freight pag FOB destination? Hindi po ba si seller? Pero sino ang nagbayad dito? We, the buyer, Menudo. So, ano nangyari, di ba? Para nagkaroon tayo ng FOB destination, freight what? Collect. Okay, so ang nangyari, dahil nga po si seller yung dapat magbayad and tayo yung nagbayad muna, nag-abono, so in this case, ikakaltas na natin sa utang. So we debit accounts payable and credit po tayo ng cash. Okay, so again, this is FOB destination, kaya ang dapat magbayad si seller, pero tayo yung nagbayad as Menudo, so naging freight freight collect. Okay, so ikakaltas na lang po natin sa utang natin yon. Okay, so are we good? Okay. Basta pag FOB destination, hindi ikaw yung magre-record ng freight ha. Take note of that. Okay, another example. Assume na si seller naman po ang nagbayad. Halimbawa, si seller ang nagbayad tapos FOB destination po yung entry or transaction. Okay, so sino yung dapat magbayad ng freight under FOB destination? Of course, si seller. Seller pa rin. So kay seller, paano yung recording niya? So si seller, dahil siya yung dapat na magbayad ng freight or transportation cost, then it will be recorded as delivery expense or in other books po, ang tawag po nila dyan ay transportation out. Okay? Which is an expense pa rin, delivery expense kasi we are going to pay for it, no, as our agreement in the FOB destination, and we credit cash. Okay, so ang freight in lang po, which is dadagdag doon sa series of transactions natin kanina in the computation of net purchases, is kapag FOB shipping point lang po. Okay, FOB shipping point lang. FOB destination, hindi po tayo magre-record ng transportation in or freight in kasi it will be the seller. Okay? So are we good? Okay. So again, if you do have any questions, please let me know ha. Okay, so to summarize yung diniscuss natin about cost of goods sold. Una muna sa net purchases, 'di ba? We have our sorry, where's my cursor? Ayan, we have the purchases, okay? And then we less the purchase returns and allowances because there would be possible returns by the buyer. Then we have also the purchase discount, availment of the cash discount within the discount period. Then we add freight in only for the purpose that we shoulder the freight and we are the buyer. Okay? So under FOB shipping point lang dapat. And then that would be equal to net purchases na gagamitin po for the cost of goods sold computation. So we have the beginning inventory. Ito po dahil periodic inventory system, malamang sa malamang, nanggaling po yan sa physical count. Okay? Then add the net purchases na na-compute natin dito kanina. Then that would be equal to cost of goods available for sale. Okay? And then we have the inventory ending and i-deduct mo yon to arrive at our cost of goods sold. So, babalikan pa rin po natin itong computations na to pag tayo po ay nag-discuss na ng completion of the accounting process for merchandising business in the next presentations. Okay? So, before I end this discussion, let me give you two examples. Okay, so let's have the first example. On October 1, 2020, Spaghetti purchased merchandise. So Spaghetti was the buyer kasi siya yung nag-purchase daw ng merchandise with an invoice price of 10,000 from Shanghai. So Shanghai is, sino? The seller. Okay? So the term is 2/10. Okay? And over 30. So again, 2% discount could be availed if collected within 10 days or paid within 10 days if we are the buyer under FOB shipping point. Okay, FOB shipping point. On the same date, which is October 1, Spaghetti paid the transportation cost of 500 pesos. And on October 3, Spaghetti returned 400 worth of defective merchandise. And lastly, for October 9, Spaghetti paid Shanghai in full. Okay, so let's have first the entry to record at the time na binili ni Spaghetti yung merchandise. Okay, by the way, this example will show us both the perspective of being the buyer, which is Spaghetti, and then Shanghai being the seller. So kay buyer muna tayo. So nung October 1, nung bumili po si buyer, no, Spaghetti ng merchandise from Shanghai. So ang entry po niya is debit purchases, no? And credit accounts payable 10,000. Bakit accounts payable? Kasi nga may credit terms po na pinakita. Hindi po ba? That should be on account. And then, it would be for seller na Shanghai, debit accounts receivable 10,000 and we credit sales 10,000. Okay? So that's the entry on October 1. Bakit po October 1 yung entry? Kasi, 'di ba, FOB shipping point, sino na po ang nagmamay-ari kapag umalis po yung goods, then it would be the buyer already. Kaya we record it in October 1, okay, at the time na umalis yung particular na product doon sa place ni seller. Okay? The next date, actually same day lang din pala, Spaghetti paid the transportation costs. So since this is FOB shipping point, who is required to pay the freight? Of course, the buyer. And sino ba yung nagbayad? Si Spaghetti as the buyer. So, Spaghetti on October 1 then will record the freight in. So, it will record debit freight in 500 and credit cash 500. So, that would be for our transportation costs. Wala pong entry si seller? Yes. Wala siyang entry kasi una, hindi naman siya nagbayad. Pangalawa, hindi naman din siya dapat yung mag-record ng transportation costs since it is FOB shipping point. The next date is on October 3, which is Spaghetti returned 400 worth of merchandise. So, nagkaroon ng return si Spaghetti. So, on the part of Spaghetti, nung nag-return siya, kaltas utang yon. So, debit accounts payable, no? Since on account yung purchase natin kanina, and we credit purchase returns and allowances amounting to 400 pesos. Okay? While on the part of the seller, which is Shanghai, no, of course, magkakaroon ng sales returns, and the entry would be debit, sales returns, and allowances, and we credit accounts receivable, kaltas po dun sa pautang natin. Okay? So that's on October 3. The last date, no? Next slide po ako. The last date po would be October 9, which is spaghetti paid Shanghai in full. Ang tanong natin, yung October 9 ba na yon, pasok po ba yon sa date ng discount period natin? Kailan ulit siya binili? Okay, ang sagot natin is October 1, binili. Kailan po nagbayad in full? October 9. So, pasok ba siya within 10 days? Actually, pag binilang natin, October 1, di ba? Ang starting of the counting would be on October 2. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Up to October 11, yun po yung deadline ng 10 days na for discount period, no? Pero dahil October 9 yan, ibig sabihin the customer have availed, no, yung discount. So ang entry po nun, dahil na-avail yung discount, would be debit, accounts payable, no? Bawas po yung discount or sorry, accounts payable natin, 'di ba naalala ninyo 10,000 yung una pero dahil nabawasan na po ng 400 nung binalik natin, ang natitirang accounts payable na lang talaga natin is 9,600. Okay? And then we credit purchase discount. So magkano yung naging purchase discount natin? Yung 9,600 na natitirang utang natin times the 2% discount since na-avail po natin yung discount, that would be 192 pesos. Okay? And then, okay, yung babayaran na lang po natin would be less the discount. So, yung 9,600 na utang minus po yung discount na 192. Kaya ang ating amount to be paid lang is 9,408. Okay? And that is the entry for spaghetti. How about Shanghai? So, for Shanghai, i-debit niya yung cash. Okay? Net of any discount na po yun, 9,408. Actually, same lang ng computation dito sa buyer kanina. Then we debit sales discount, 192. So, yun yung 2% nung 9,600 na natitirang pautang po natin. Okay? And then we credit the accounts receivable worth 9,600. Okay? So, are we good on that? Okay, thank you very much. So to summarize then, in terms of our computation, no, on the part of the buyer, which is spaghetti, of course, yung kanyang net purchases is 9,908. So paano po na-compute yun? Yung purchases natin nung una na 10,000, then deduct nyo po yung purchase returns and allowances so nagbalik na 400, and then nagkaroon tayo ng discount dito sa huling entry natin, 192 pesos. Then di ba nagkaroon tayo ng freight in doon sa payment ng transportation cost since it is FOB shipping point and we are the buyer, 500 pesos to arrive at our net purchases na 9,908. Okay? So are we clear on that? Alright, very good. So how about for Shanghai? Ano yung net sales niya since siya si seller? So ang net sales naman niya is starting with the gross sales, di ba, na invoice price amounting to 10,000. And then yung sales returns and allowances niya would be 400. Okay, yun yung return. Then we have the sales discount na less 192. Okay, wala po tayong recording ng freight in, kaya ang net sales po natin is what? 9,408 pesos. Okay? 9,408 pesos. So magkaiba sila, no? Net purchases at saka net sales ng seller at saka buyer. Kasi magkaiba naman po yung record na amounts natin. Okay? So are we clear? Again, if you do have any questions, please key in your questions to our respective chat boxes. Okay? And for my last example, okay, example number 2. So on October 1, 2020, BBQ purchased merchandise amounting to 10,000 from BB niya. Okay? The term is 2/10 and over 30 and take note, FOB destination po siya. Okay? Pero binili po ng October 1. Okay? And FOB destination, on October 2, BB niya paid the transportation costs of 500 pesos. No? The goods arrived in BBQ's warehouse on October 2. So, yung goods na binili natin na October 1 under FOB destination has arrived only on October 2. Okay? So, on October 3 naman, BBQ returned 400 worth of merchandise. Okay? Kasi defective. And on October 13, 2020, BBQ paid BB niya in full. So, halos pareha siya sa example 1. Ang nagbago una, ito ay FOB destination, dumating sa warehouse na October 2, and then nagbayad ng October 13. So what would be the possible series of entries for the buyer na BBQ and then the seller, which is BB niya? Okay? So let's start with the buyer. Okay. Kailan po natin i-record yung purchased? Since this is FOB destination, anong sagot? Sabi natin, di ba, kanina under FOB destination, habang tinatransport po yung product, pagmamayari pa siya ni seller. Until such time na dumating siya saan? Sa buyer. Kailan ba dumating kay buyer? October 2. So, ang tanong, kailan natin i-record yung purchase? Ang sagot po is October 2. Tatandaan nyo yun ha. Pag FOB destination, ang entry po natin para sa purchase ng merchandise ay kung kailan po dumating, which is October 2. Okay, so we debit purchases 10,000 and we credit accounts payable 10,000 again on October 2 for the purchases since yun pa lang yung time na dumating yung merchandise. How about for BB niya? Same din po, no? Dahil still in transit po yung goods, sa iyo pa rin yan as the seller. Pag dumating na kay buyer, saka ka lang magre-record ng sales. So the entry naman for BB niya would be debit accounts receivable 10,000 and we credit sales 10,000. Okay? Are we good on that? Okay. So, sabi dito, on October 2 din, si BB niya po nagbayad ng transportation cost. So, BB niya is si seller, di ba? At siya yung nagbayad ng transportation cost. Ano ba yung shipping terms? FOB destination. So, parang ang nangyari, FOB destination, tanong, sino dapat magbayad ng freight? Di ba? Si seller. Okay? Sino yung nag-abono? Di ba? This is BB niya. So, si seller din. Ano to? Freight, what? Freight prepaid. So, freight prepaid, FOB destination, sino yung magre-record? Si seller pa rin. Okay? Pero si seller, since seller yan, ano po yung recording natin ng transportation cost? So, on October 2, it will be a debit to delivery expense, 500, and credit cash, 500. So, again, hindi po yan i-considered as freight in ni buyer kasi ang dapat na magbayad ay si seller because it is FOB destination. Okay? Then, on October 3, nagkaroon po ng return worth 400. So, for the perspective of the buyer, so we debit accounts payable, kaltas utang ulit, no, 400, and credit purchases, returns, and allowances, 400. Okay, so that is for the buyer. While on the seller's perspective, okay, we debit sales, returns, and allowances, 400, and we credit accounts receivable, 400 for the return of defective merchandise. Okay? Are we good? Okay. So, the next date and the last date actually was on October 13. So, October 13 is what? October 13 po is already ilang days na. October 1 yun yung time na binili natin. That is actually around 12 days na after the date of purchase or invoice natin. Ano ba yung date ng discount? It is what? 10 days lang kasi 2/10 lang. So what does it mean? So ibig sabihin, BBQ was not able to avail the discount. So hindi niya na-avail yung discount kasi nagbayad siya after the discount period. So in this case, no, on October 13, walang discount na magaganap and the typical payment entry would be debit accounts payable 9,600 kasi yun na lang po yung natitirang utang. That's actually coming from 10,000, 'di ba? Minus minus 400 na return. Okay? And credit cash, 9,600. Again, to put an emphasis, no discount was given to BBQ kasi nagbayad na po siya after the discount period. No? And also, kay BB niya, wala ring i-record na sales discount. Okay? We just simply debit cash, 9,600 and we credit accounts receivable, 9,600. Okay? So, yan po yung mga entries natin. And lastly, let's try to present yung net sales at saka net purchases. So, for the buyer, our net purchases is 9,600. So, that's equal to the purchases na 10,000 minus the purchase returns and allowances na 400. Wala po tayong purchase discount since we will not able to avail the discount. And wala rin po tayong freight in kasi ang dapat na magbayad kanina was the buyer since, sorry, the seller since it is FOB destination. Okay, so 9,600 for the net purchases. While for the net sales, okay, so yung gross sales po natin kanina in the October 2 was 10,000. And then the sales returns and allowances in October 3 was 400. Wala pong sales discount again because the customer was not able to avail the discount period. And then the net sales would be 9,600. Okay? So, yan po yung ating example number 2. Okay? So I hope na natuto po kayo sa ating discussion for today. Again, thank you very much for listening. So this is the part 1 of our merchandising discussion, and future videos will be uploaded related pa doon sa completion of the accounting process for merchandising business and special journals. So if you do have any questions, please key in your questions to our respective chat boxes, or even sa mga nasa YouTube, you can comment it in our YouTube video. Okay? So again, if you don't have any questions, okay, I'll end this here, and thank you very much for listening. I'll see you all on the next video presentation. Stay safe, everyone. Kamsahamnida. Bye-bye.